It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Anime Movie Podcast, The AMP. We are your hosts. I'm Joe Welke.
I'm Kat Hamilton.
And today we are reviewing a 2001 anime film called Metropolis. But before we get into all of that, I would like to let everybody know, we don't really do this too often, but right up at the top here,
We're going to plug
our stuff here. We got an Instagram page, and it's at the Anime Movie Podcast. If you guys could follow that, that'd be awesome. If you could rate and review this on Apple Podcasts, that's dope. It helps boost the podcast's visibility. And we also have a YouTube channel. All you need to do is search the Anime Movie Podcast, and we post a bunch of fun clips from the podcast with some visual representation of what we're talking about. So, yeah, if you want to check that out and subscribe and check out all of our videos there, that'd be awesome. Would really enjoy you guys doing that. And now with that out of the way, let us get into Rintaro's 2001 sci-fi anime Metropolis. This is a tale of mystery, of detective work, of science fiction, of robotics, and
a retro future that I would describe as neon noir.
Oh, neon noir, not neo-noir.
Mm-hmm.
Neon noir. I like that. Coined a new phrase here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely a very interesting movie, and I'm sure that we're going to talk a lot about a lot of the stuff that goes on in this.
I think we'll talk about the movie. What do you think?
I think we'll talk about a lot of the stuff that happened in the movie on this podcast where we review and talk about the movie. I mean, call me crazy, but I think that's what we're about to do. So if you're in for that, buckle up, mofos. Yeah, so the story follows Who
does it follow?
Yeah, it follows quite a few people. There's a lot going on in this movie. There's a lot of mystery, but the main characters are a man named Duke Red, who is the leader of Metropolis. He has more power than the president, than the mayor. And
yet he says he doesn't want to go into politics and he has no interest in undermining the president, who doesn't seem to have any power.
But he is a duke, or his name is Duke. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But he seems to be like a very powerful leader man in this city of Metropolis. And we're following him and his kind of corrupt government stuff that he has going on. And there is an investigator named Shunsaku Bane. I forget which it is, but it's spelled like Ban, B-A-N. I think it's Bane, but I could be wrong. So I will pronounce all three every time. I'll just call him Shunsaku.
Just switch it up.
I'll just call him the investigator. I'll call him Investigator Shunsaku.
Mm-hmm.
His nephew, Kenichi, and they're investigating a kind of mad scientist man named Dr. Lawton. And Dr. Lawton has kind of been in hot water because he's accused of doing some kind of like human organ trafficking. And he's creating a mysterious humanoid robot type robot thing for Duke Red for mysterious reasons that we'll get into in the spoiler section. But right now we're kind of in the non-spoiler, but I will let everybody know Duke Red has some nefarious things going on.
I wanted to interject quickly and just say that the city, the Metropolis, has sort of a tiered classist system that involves robots as sort of the working class. And it kind of sounds like there's a little sort of whisper of AI technology or cyborg technology combining human organs with robot parts, but that's very illegal. But people are very into basically owning slaves in the future, which is also kind of the 1930s at the same time.
Yeah, and with the class system too, so robots are seen as kind of a lot of people are seeing robots as subhuman and just kind of tools to forward society. But
second-class citizens.
yeah, but beneath the robots too, there are a lot of jobless, unemployed humans who are mad at the robots for taking it took our job.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
So there's also kind of a revolution. There's a lot of there's some warring gangs too. There are the Marduks, who are like this huge anti-robot, I guess, government agency, it seems, but not really. They're kind of separate. But then there's also this.
Yeah, I guess I was reading somewhere that the Marduks are kind of the private militia of Duke Red, who doesn't actually have military power.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and they're anti-robot. And then there's this revolutionary group who are also anti-robot, but for different reasons.
Yeah, that was kind of confusing. That usually the my enemy's enemy is my friend thing would pan out. In this film, they're like, no, we're fighting. We don't like each other, but we also have this common enemy.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, you would definitely think the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but yeah, there's just gang warfare kind of going on, and robots are being slaughtered all over the place.
Yeah, and apparently the sort of class warfare stuff didn't really come into the manga, the original manga, which is from 1949, which would be almost immediately post-war, World War II. But I think that there were more anxieties about AI technology and also about class warfare towards the, later part of the century.
Yeah, there's also some changes about the robot woman, superhumanoid robot that is being made in the manga. It's not a woman, it's a gender fluid thing that can fly. And there's some character changes. There's some characters that don't exist in the manga. And the funnest fact, let me redo that. The funnest fact about the manga is it was inspired by the film Metropolis, but only on the most superficial level possible. The creator of the Metropolis manga saw the movie poster for Metropolis, the film, and took just the movie poster as inspiration to make his version of Metropolis into a manga. So way to go. I forget the guy's name who made the manga, but way to confuse people for...
Osama Tezuka.
Osama Tezuka? Way to confuse generations of people about, is this a manga adaptation of the film, or is this film some kind of way related to the 1920s film? It's really not.
It's almost like giving too much credit to something that you got, an idea from, where it's like, oh, I saw this one flash of it and I decided to base something off of it. And they went, I saw one flash of it, but I will also name the entire thing the same name. I just wanted to read a quote about that from a Fred Patton article, who's kind of a manga and anime expert. He says, in fact,
more than us?
He says, in fact, he had not seen Lang's movie when he produced his version, inspired by the reviews and plot synopsis of it, and a picture of its poster showing the robot woman giving birth. That's it.
Wow. One thing that I will say about the movie that I did see, that it was a huge, at least in America, a huge box office bomb. This thing had a budget of $15 million, and it only got $4 million back in the theatrical release.
Yeah, it was made to be a blockbuster. It was released in Japan on May 26, 2001, and it premiered in America at the Hollywood Egyptian Theater here in Los Angeles. And it was supposed to be released by TriStar Pictures November 9th of the same year for wider theatrical release. But September 11th happened, and it didn't get that.
Yeah.
So it was released later, but I have a feeling that people were still pretty nervous about buildings being destroyed. And
Yeah, there's a lot of building destruction going on in Metropolis, and it's kind of like that, like in Spider-Man, there was a scene with the Twin Towers pre 9/11, and then 9/11 happened, and then they had to kind of change some of the stuff that went on in Spider-Man. So I think that this got kind of a treatment that was like, oh, maybe we should push it back, but then they didn't. Did you say that they didn't push it back?
They did push it back. They pushed it back to end of January 2002.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, there's been a couple of movies even in 2020 that were pushed back because of, school shooting stuff. And then there's movies and the riots, the George Floyd riots, they had to push some of the films back because they were like, oh, this might incense people. So I could see that happening with 9/11 in Metropolis, because there is quite a bit of building destruction going on in this movie.
And sort of low-key terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like gang stuff, kind of terrorism shit going on too. But I will say, with the $15 million budget, you can really see it. I think that the animation in this is very impressive in some parts.
I found the way characters moved to be unimpressive.
Really?
I thought it wasn't very fluid. It felt like watching cartoon work. It didn't feel so much like animation. I felt like, as in, like when you talk about a movie versus talking about watching a film, I thought some of the backgrounds were incredibly, astonishingly impressive. I thought there were some interesting things going on, but the movement of the characters and character design against those incredible backgrounds was really jarring for me. It felt really juxtaposed.
I disagree with you about the movement. I thought that everybody moved very fluidly, especially and I wrote this down, like, this doesn't feel like an anime to me because of the fluidity of the movement, and it's
weird. I'm completely on the opposite side of that.
But I'm with you on the character designs. The character designs don't feel anime to me at all. To me, it felt more like Smurfs / Popeye, because the way that they were drawn, like their forearms were enormous, their calves were enormous, and like human anatomy does not look like that.
Does not apply.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything feels kind of chibi.
Yeah, but also like Cuphead. And I think that you said that the animator from AstroBoy did this, right?
Well, AstroBoy was done by the same manga artist, I think, and I think they tried to stick to the style of the manga that is kind of cartoonish. But the original story in the manga is much more sort of going on little adventures and less like big political ideas and revolution and coups and all these kinds of points of violence. So I think I can kind of feel that when I look at the sort of cartoonish style of the characters. It doesn't feel like it fits with the story that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'll agree with that with you. I will stand by, like, I think that the motion of the characters I liked it, but for such an intense and kind of heavy concept-y film that's supposed to be like thought-provoking, I guess, and make you question, like, is technology sentient? Is that life, or like what's going on? It's very cutesy looking and it's weird. It's very bizarre.
This kind of reminded me of Star Wars sometimes.
Okay.
I feel like you could do this as a Star Wars movie if you just put in some spaceships. Because there's like droids, and there's like just the way you're introduced to a lot of different characters, and there's like these subplots of these political coups, and things like that, just gave me a very Star Wars feel.
I felt like it was kind of a PG-ified Blade Runner.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some Blade Runner in there for sure.
Yeah.
And in these like sort of dystopian futures, you frequently see these sort of classist or class warfare ideas, and they're often in these tiered systems or put into zones or districts.
Yeah.
And the top level felt very District 1 from Hunger Games, or I can't remember the name of the series, but there's a series that's all based in people living in silos, and depending on what level you're on in the silo, then you hold a certain place in society. But this reminded me of so many other things, and I think that part of that made it less exciting for me, because I know a lot of other films and works that have explored some of the ideas this explores better.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I don't know. I have a feeling that you're like less amped about the movie than I am, but I still enjoyed it. Like still thought that it was kind of cleverly done and interesting to watch. And I mean, even though it didn't really match the tone of the movie, I thought that the animation was pretty cool. And I absolutely freaking loved the soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack is great.
The soundtrack is this very New Orleans jazzy, but also like 1920s swing music type of stuff going on. And anytime a song came on, I was like tapping my toes. It was
Yeah. The original score is by Toshiyuki Honda, who's one of Japan's leading jazz performance artists.
Well, there you fucking go. Like it was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it, and it was very cinematic. But then also at times I felt like it didn't fit the movie. Like it was, we're in this really super future place where there's robot cops and there's talk about AI and there's this weird new government system, and then you got this like. And it's like, what the fuck is this?
I don't know, because like so much of the city is so Art Deco, and partly because it is, sort of a callback to Fritz Lang, that music worked for me, and I kind of, I liked it, I got it, I felt like it always worked, but it stood out, but it also made the movie better, because sometimes when you have sort of a standout soundtrack, it's not for good reasons.
Yeah, I agree. It did stand out. And it did make the movie better, but I just feel like for such a futuristic, heavy topics driven thing, like I wouldn't think New Orleans jazz,
Sure. Fun fact, according to Publicity, that the Metropolitan Rhythm Kings, which is the group that performed the score, included Rintaro on the bass clarinet.
Oh, the director. That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I like that. I like that. I like that they got to get in and probably live out kind of a dream. Like, oh, please, let me play the bass clarinet on this. And they're like, sure, weirdo. I guess it's your movie, so... Let's just mute his microphone.
Apparently my dad was so bad at singing that in school he was told to only lip sync when the children went to do their singing things in the choirs.
No. Poor Mr. Hamilton.
That could also be Rintaro. I don't know.
But yeah, how amped are you about the old Metropolis? 2001's Metropolis.
I'm okay amped.
Okay. I'm definitely a step above okay amped. I think it's pretty cool. I don't know who I'd recommend it to. I'd recommend it to a 14-year-old who heard about Blade Runner, and it's like, well, you're not old enough for that yet, but here's a little preface to that.
Or they're starting to get very superficially into some philosophical ideas.
Yeah, I could see that.
Start with this one, then go watch Ex Machina.
And iRobot. This is also kind of iRobot-y, like all of those movies that are AI, like, are they alive? Can they think for themselves? Do they have feelings? Can they love? All of that shit.
Yeah, I think that there's this big human preoccupation about why it's so special to be human. And a lot of the time when that gets threatened, people have huge anxieties about it. And I don't think it even necessarily translates into the fear that AI is going to kill you or is going to take over. It's literally just people being like, hey, humanity's mine.
Or they're afraid of a superior being coming and taking us all out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Although
that'll keep you up at night. We're working on that right now, Kat.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that, like, yeah, that's the obvious fear, and that's usually shown in movies, and it's the kind of very quick thinking, like, well, what's the worst that could happen? They kill us all. But I think there's something deeper and more existential about the reason why these fears come up, and then why they translate into those sorts of situations in these movies.
Anything else that you would like to talk about before we get into spoilers?
No, let's go on.
No.
Well, I will not.
Well, then, all right, let's get into goddamn spoilers.
Let's spoil it.
They wouldn't spoil this, right?
Oh,
they
God,
can't spoil this.
spoilers,
Don't spoil
Spoiler
this.
talk, anime movie podcast, spoiler talk. All right, Kat, what would you like to spoil first?
I mean, I guess I could have said this in the non-spoilers, but this
Well,
movie...
this whole thing is fucking worthless then. We just played a song about spoilers.
You're right. That's probably not even worth me talking. I feel like this film fails to create any kind of connection with the characters. I felt no empathy for any of these characters. I didn't feel connected to them. And I feel like this could have been dealt much better as a series or like a mini series. And you could have explored into some of the ideas that are thrown at you very quickly, because I think this tries to go from a lot of different angles, and it actually almost kind of does it well. But I think what it loses in the process is having any kind of emotional connection to your audience. Except for Albert 2.
Yeah,
May he rest in peace.
Albert 2 is a robot, like a trash robot that was protecting Kenichi and the mystery girl whose name is Tima. He was just like, he was like an old school garbage can with a head on it, and he was protecting them. And
he's very droid-like. He kind of mostly kind of softly beeps.
Yeah, and the villain of the big, not really big bad, but like kind of the big bad. Would you say that Rock is the big bad in this, or is Duke Red?
Maybe we should do a ranking of level of evil in these characters. Yeah.
All right. I think that Rock is the big bad, because Duke Red, like, he does want to, in terms of a global scale, Duke Red is the big bad. But in terms of this story, Rock is the big bad. So Duke Red wants to use Tima as some kind of like super crazy weapon. And if she sits upon this throne that he had built, all of this robotic stuff will plug into her, and then she can just destroy whatever she wants, basically. And
whatever he wants,
ideally.
Yeah,
exactly. He wants to basically just use her as a weapon of mass destruction. But it turns out when she comes out of her robot womb, Kenichi...
Jesus Christ.
When she comes out of her robot womb, she kind of imprints on Kenichi, like a duck does with the mother. And then so she's like, Kenichi is my whole world, my whole love, my whole life. So Duke Red doesn't really get to use her in the way that he had planned.
She spends most of this film writing Kenichi's name in her high school notebook, but her high school notebook is everything.
Yeah.
It's just all the things. She will write his name on it.
She'll write it all over like a goddamn psychopath. There's a scene where she's in Duke Red's like palace, and Kenichi is just written all over the walls and windows, and she's sitting on a bed in like the fetal position, and a maid comes in and she's kind of like, whoa, what the fuck?
The only other female character in this entire fucking film.
Yeah. I mean, you could say the only female character because Tima is not human.
Correct. And I thought about that. But if she identifies as female.
You're allowing robots to identify how they want?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we're in.
I think Tima's a she, her.
All right. Well, I can't argue that. That's the thing. But I think it's a goddamn dirty fucking robot bucket of bolts. Get out of here, you goddamn bucket of bolts.
She has a metal heart.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's why I think Duke Red is the big bad, but Rock is the more intimate to this story bad because he's the one that's constantly trying to kill our heroes, I guess, who are Kenichi and Investigator Shunsaku.
He's kind of a rebel without a cause who's constantly throwing temper tantrums and is having a constant identity crisis. And he hates himself so much that he can't cope with it. So he decides to project that somewhere else. Like, I would much rather deal with Duke Red in this situation because I feel like he could be reasonable. He obviously has some malintent, but with Rock, like, he could go off at any second. And he doesn't seem to care about anything or anyone. Where you get with Duke Red, like, he cared about his daughter who died. Like, you see tenderness in his eyes. Like, Rock is just has massive daddy issues and will kill anything.
Yeah, I mean, his main thing is, like, he's trying to impress Duke Red and prove, like, I'm a good son to you, and he thinks that Duke Red should have all of the power in the world and he should be the one sitting upon the throne, which how would that even work? Because as we see at the end of the movie, it's a bunch of plugs going in. So like, what is Duke Red going to offer? He's a person. And Rock kind of is like, no one should be more powerful than you, Duke Red. And if you let Tima sit on the throne, she's going to be more powerful than you. Which I guess kind of makes sense because she is way more powerful than him.
Yeah, I guess. I think that he's a very one-dimensional villain, and it kind of works since he's young. And so he just seems to be like a young guy just riding a wave of testosterone and lashing out at anything that comes near him. But, you know, it doesn't have the kind of depth of like villains that I like and enjoy. I like when they have like a little gray area where you feel like you can empathize with them and you're like, oh wait, no, I'm empathizing with the villain. Like, oh, what's happening? And, you know, you can see that they have a multitude, a whole spectrum of emotional capabilities. And he's got kind of two lanes that he goes down, and it's, Daddy, I love you, even though you hate me. And I'm going to go kill things.
Well, he's killing things because he's trying to either save his dad or impress his dad or make sure that his dad is the most powerful thing in the world, I guess.
It just seems weird. I don't really buy it because his dad literally in no scene, like, was there like his dad saying anything positive to him, even neutral?
Yeah,
you know, even like, you know, that comment could be taken either way. You know, it was always like telling him, you can't call me dad. Yeah. You're not my son.
You're not
my
even
children,
my real kid.
My children died. Yeah. Don't call me that.
Yeah, well, the backstory is like, well, I don't think that we've talked about this yet, but Rock is not his son. He's like an adopted son. And Duke Red found him somewhere and just kind of took him in. But then he's just so cruel to him. Like it seems kind of like a Frodo Quasimodo situation. Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, where it's like it'd be different.
Sorry. Frodo and Quasimodo.
Yeah.
That's some weird fan fiction.
It's Frollo and Quasimodo. So I could understand if it was like that, where somebody gave him Rock and they're like, and he was tasked with taking care of Rock. But it seems like he took him in and then he's just like, I fucking hate you. It's like, why'd you take him in?
But I don't think he had just taken him in. I think that kid had been with him for a while.
Well, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
But do you think that he, at the beginning, had hopes for him or something, and then I don't know, I feel like he's a good kid, you know?
Well, that's the thing, is like, I think if it's sort of more thought through and the characters have more dimension, then you can kind of pick up some clues as to how you got to that point.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like that was day one, but also there's no clues as to why he would want this adopted son in the first place, or there was no lead up to him deciding that he didn't even want him to call him father, or there wasn't any, I don't know. I just felt like it just felt so weird to me. Like, that's just...
Yeah, what did Rock do in the past to make Duke Red hate him so much?
And it sounded like he was saying, like, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times, do not call me father. I do not love you. My children are dead. You will never be my child.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah, and Rock is like, just say the word, Dad. I'll kill anyone for you.
Yeah,
it's
why
like,
the loyalty? Like,
yeah.
that's an incredible abusive relationship.
Yeah, there is some questions between their relationship because, yeah, like I said, how did it get to where Duke Red hates him, and why would Rock stay with him?
And why would he make Rock the head of his little private militia if he thought so little of him?
Yeah, I mean, Rock is one of the higher up people in the Mardukes, which
he controls it.
Yeah, and they have a deal with Duke Red, and they're, kind of his secret militia. Why are you doing business with him? And also, like, dude, if I had a kid that was like, I will literally kill anyone for you, I love you so much, I'm like, you just do your chores. Like, you're a good kid, man. I don't need you to kill anybody. I appreciate it. Like, even if they're adopted, I'd have a hard time looking a kid that offers to kill people for me in the face and be like, I don't fucking love you. I'd be like, bro, you're cool as hell. Thanks for your loyalty.
It's just, the way he walks around and just does horrific acts of cruelty and yet has this obsession with his dad who hates him just doesn't sit right with me. I just don't like the character. It's just like, how can we make him just really evil all the time and there's nothing else there?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but he stays loyal to him up to the end.
Oh yeah. Like, when robots are going to attack his father and kill him, and they're kind of called in by the power surge that's put off by Tima. So they come to the call, and then they're attacking Duke Red, and then his son, who, by the way, should be dead. So many of these characters should have died. Like, they would fall to the ground, and then they'd just be like, oh, I'm just going to get up like, don't worry, I'll just stumble around, and then fall over again like they've died. And you're like, oh, this time they've died. No, not yet. Anyway, so he's done one of these numbers where he's shown up and he's like, I'm magically not dead. Who knew? and then he's like, Father, I won't let some dirty second-class citizen robots kill you. Instead, I will kill you and myself and the robots with a giant explosion.
Yeah.
And then he presses a button with his foot.
Yeah.
Which is apparently the giant explosion button.
Well, yeah. I mean, doesn't every
don't
building have a giant explosion button? You gotta have one just in case. What if a bunch of robots come and you don't want to die by the hands of a robot?
Sure, and your hands are incapacitated for some reason, so you need to press it with your foot.
Yeah, you don't want to get killed by a dirty fucking bucket of bolts.
You can also, take a twister board and put it over and put the button under one of the buttons, and then make things just really, really exciting,
Yeah, what a
It's
weird
like high
game.
stakes twister.
Oof. That seems like it would be in like one of those Saw movies.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Duke seems more believably evil to me. He seems to have more depth.
So do you think that Duke is the big bad versus Rock in this movie?
I would rather be left in a room with Duke Red.
Okay.
I think Rock would kill me for some reason.
Yeah, he definitely
He wouldn't
would.
even need a reason.
Yeah, he would. I mean, look at you. Rock would just say, "Oh, you look like you might like robots, and you probably wouldn't like my dad, so you're fucking dead." And you'd be like, "I haven't even met your dad yet." And he's like, "I don't care." Bye-bye, cat.
Who's the next most evil?
In my rankings, I think Big Bad is Duke Red, but 1B is Rock. Who's under those people? I would say the president, President Boom.
I guess President Boom and the guy who's the sort of commander of the military and their cronies, they're kind of all at the same level to me.
Yeah. It's like they didn't even really need to be in the movie, I feel like.
No, not at all.
Like there's this weird side story of Duke Red staging a coup on the president with the military, and it just felt unnecessary.
And what's confusing, what adds to the confusion here is that it seems like President Boom has made some kind of alliance with Atlas, who's the head of some other militia group, who's anti-robot, and they're the people who feel like they've lost their jobs and have been put into hard times because of the sort of robot class system. So they kind of have a handshake with President Boom, and they stage what they think is going to be a successful revolution, and they think they're going to have the backing of the president for it, and that this is going to be part of President Boom's way of getting Duke Red out of power.
Mm-hmm.
But then you find out that the commander of the actual military is siding with Duke Red, so shows up and is like, "Hey, I'm not actually on your team. I'm gonna kill you."
Mm-hmm.
And then also the Mardukes are involved.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, Duke Red's group, but they're all just fighting robots. And I was just like, what is this?
Yeah, I don't know. The question I have with this movie is, who likes robots? There's so many robots in this movie. And it seems like everyone in this movie hates robots, except for fucking investigator Shunsaku and Kenichi, and that's it. And maybe Dr. Lawton.
Yeah, I mean, and there's like one robot in the beginning who apparently is dressed as a human to kind of disrupt this big celebration.
For the, what is it called? Ziggurat?
For the Ziggurat,
Ziggurat.
Opening up. Which kind of hints at like, hey, robots have free will a little bit, but then they get crushed and destroyed if they try anything. But after that, every other robot is dead lovely.
Yeah, because they don't talk.
They're all like just doing jobs.
Yeah.
They're like vacuuming, cleaning windows, and some of them just seem really nice.
One of them's
like,
a cop.
Like Albert too. I miss Albert too. He was the only character I had an emotional connection to. And I was like, if they kill Albert too, this movie has lost me.
Yeah.
And then they did, and I was like, I'm done.
And then immediately after that, you see a whole army of Albert 2s in this movie.
And I was like, it's not the same. It wasn't the original Albert 2.
Yeah. Dude, Rock kills a lot of fucking people, or even attempts to. Rock kills Dr. Lawton, kills Albert 2, kills...
Tries to kill Tima multiple times.
Tries to kill Tima multiple times, tries to kill Kenichi multiple times, almost kills investigator Shunsaku, kills his dad, kills himself. This guy just doesn't stop until he literally can't because he killed himself.
Because he pressed the explode button.
Yeah. Rock's going on a goddamn spree.
He is. He really is on a killing spree. So the original manga had big themes of like parents and parent-child relationships, and the robot in the manga was like ended up having its complete meltdown because it realized it didn't have parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like in the film, Rock is having a meltdown because he doesn't have parents, but he desperately wants someone to be his parent and act like his parent.
I think those themes of parenthood carry over into this, though, because...
Oh, yeah, and I think that's very much on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, Rock, obviously, loads of parent issues. Tima and Kenichi, I mean, there's like the imprinting thing going on there.
And that is very weird because it's kind of set up as though they could be a love interest situation, a young puppy love situation. And then a couple scenes later, I'd love to talk about that scene with Tima talking to Rock because he's trying to basically, I guess, mess with her mind by telling her that she's a robot because he figures out that she doesn't know that she's a robot, and he just kind of wants to take her into an underground place and bully her a little.
Yeah. He wants to break her robot mind and break her robot heart.
Right. Okay. And he's like, oh, to be human, you'd have to have parents. And she's like, I do have parents. And he's like, well, who? He's
like, who the fuck are your parents, idiot?
And then she's like, Kenichi.
I was like, oh, yep. Because I wrote Tima imprints on Tenichi like way, way early in the movie. And then she's like, Tenichi's my parents. I was like, nailed it, Joe. Joe, you fucking nailed it. If you're listening to this, give yourself a gold star, buddy, because you nailed it. And then there's also the... Wait,
I do have a point about this, why I brought this up. Because he says, basically, if you don't have parents, you are not human. Like, this is this logical statement that he comes up with. And it's kind of implying the reason why he's kind of losing his shit is because he feels like he's losing his humanity because his father won't accept him and he doesn't have parents.
Oh, that's deep. You went digging for that one. That's good.
That's why I desperately wanted to say it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm glad that I didn't interrupt you to do that. Or I did interrupt you and you stopped me from interrupting you. One more kind of parental/guardian issue in this movie is the fact that Inspector Shunsaku straight up just loses Kenichi and kind of does not give a fuck about it.
Ever. Yeah.
He's oh, he'll be fine. He's just in the sewers somewhere. I got to eat some hot dogs and ice cream.
Yeah, and if you read a synopsis, it's all like, and then the investigator is looking for his nephew during this time while his nephew is in the underground, and it's like they're trying to find each other. Like, neither of them seems particularly interested in finding the other person.
The robot cop has more of like, hey, maybe we should try and find Kenichi.
Yeah.
And fucking Shunsaku is just like sticking his finger in ice cream, being like, yeah, well, he's strong. He'll be good. And then he's eating a hot dog later. It's like, your nephew is missing.
But also, you kind of learn that they're strangers to Metropolis, and they introduce themselves as being from Japan, and that they're here on, sort of international business to investigate this mad scientist.
Yeah, Dr. Lawton, because he's illegally selling human organs, apparently.
Or buying them.
Or buying them, yeah, whatever.
Or something.
He's
using them.
He's dealing with them.
For juggling organs. And, so this is like coming to a foreign country with your nephew. It's never really explained why he's there. I guess he's like an apprentice or an assistant or something to his uncle. But he gets lost in this kind of dramatic way. It's not even like, oh, well, he's in the city that he knows. He grew up here. He knows all the back streets. You know, he knows how to stay safe here. No, a completely new place, somewhere they do not know, that has a whole system they have to be shown in detail and explained to them because it works so differently from wherever they have come from, which is Japan.
Meanwhile, Rock is fucking shooting guns at him. Stop. He is nowhere near fine, dude. He's got so much attempted murder on his head right now. Like, that kid is so far from being fine. And you're up in zone 1, eating ice cream and hot dogs. And fucking Kenichi is in zone 2 or 3, I'm not quite sure. But he's getting bullets whizzing by his face. And if not for the robot hero, Albert II.
May he rest in peace.
Kenichi'd probably be fucking dead without Albert II.
That's so true.
The real hero of this movie.
That really did make me sad.
I know it did. I knew as soon as Albert II stepped in front of the bullets, I was like, Albert II is going to bite the dust and Kat's going to be sad about it. And Albert II has been in this movie for like 15 seconds and Kat immediately was like, better not kill Albert II. Fucking.
Another thing that bothered me is the very short and quite ineffective grammar lesson that Kenichi gives to Tima, where she's struggling with saying, who are you? Or answering the question, who are you? And then saying, who are I? And so on and so forth. And then the next scene, it's like, oh no, now she has a command of language and she also can spell Kenichi's name and she'll spell it everywhere.
Hey, she's a super humanoid robot. I mean, she can pick that shit up, I guess. I don't know. Kenichi's a terrible teacher, though. I wouldn't want him teaching my kids.
So, another thing, Dr. Lawton, with his dying breath, gives the investigator a small red book.
Yeah, and it has like all of his plans and reasons for why he's doing what he's doing and all of the, I guess, kind of a blueprint on how to make a Tima.
It's all the information and exposition the investigator could ever dream to have. But later, when he stops Rock from whatever Rock's trying to do with Tima, look inside of her, was he just going to like pull her apart? I didn't really understand what was going to, like, if it was going to be like a scrap part situation or if he was just going to be like, oh, there's your liver. Looks like metal. And then like close her back up.
Yeah.
But he comes from nowhere and stops it from happening. And then he takes Tima to what looks like a goddamn lovely hotel.
Oh, yeah.
The Coconut Hotel.
The Coconut Hotel. It's very ornate. I mean, the couch that they're on, I want to sit on that couch and take some pictures of myself.
It is an opulent opportunity.
Yeah.
For some very, very snazzy Art Deco style photos.
It looks like a couch that would be in like a Prada sunglasses ad.
Yeah. But he has, I guess, read this book cover to cover and has like figured out how to make a machine that will allow Tima to connect with all the networks of the city or something to find where Kenichi is.
Yeah, he read Tima for Dummies.
And it involves like an old school phone, you know, with the
rotary.
With the rotary. Yeah. And what else? It was like such a random selection of all of these objects connected in different ways. And he's like, now all you have to do, let me read on page 17 in this recipe for how to find people with Tima. And, you know, put your hand here and there's going to be some electricity. And then she's going to be like, what? I don't know. I'm just a puppy. And then she like puts her hand on it. And then she's like, I do know where he is. He's in the place that you just said.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck is this scene?
Like, what did you even need Tima to do that for? You said that he was in the building, but I guess he needed the exact specific location. But he's like, I know he's in the ziggurat. And he's like, I know he's in the ziggurat, but I don't know where, I guess. And then he gives Tima the electric shock therapy that she needs to figure it out. And then she's like, he's in the building. He's like, I knew it.
I mean, I don't think it got any more exact than
Yeah.
than I don't know.
Also, what was he wearing in that scene? He had like a gi on.
Oh yeah, he was wearing like a little kimono.
Yeah, I don't know why.
He was relaxing at the Coconut Hotel, Joe.
I guess so.
You can't always wear a trench coat.
Yeah. All right. That's good enough reason for me. I love that Pero, the robot cop, also had a trench coat and a fedora.
Yeah.
Like he's fucking in Casablanca or something.
I was reading somewhere that I think this might be relating to who he was in the manga, but he's actually a junkie.
Really?
And the cops are like, give this investigator that junkie robot.
Wow.
And then he just like is dressed as a cop, or dressed as an investigator.
So wait, he's not even a cop in the manga?
Yeah.
He's just a fucking delusional junkie?
Yeah.
What does a robot get high on? Fucking
It's a great question.
Pennzoil? Just like, can't get enough of this fucking oil. Give me that shit. Oh yeah, I'll be an investigator. I don't care. Just hook me up with some lighter fluid.
Yeah, let's see. Pero, a junkie robot, contemptuously given by the Metropolis police to the investigator as a local guide, looks as comical as the robots in the 1930s movie serials, but his intelligent dialogue and wise advice give him a tragic dignity. That's from that Fred Patton article.
That is hilarious that there's a junkie robot out there, though.
See, I want to watch that movie where this is true and explored, where at
Yes.
some point you find out he's a junkie.
Yeah.
And he's been the one wise like character in the movie who keeps kind of putting people back on the right track, and does have this kind of tragic dignity about him, but he's also like always trying to get his fix.
Yeah. Look, I'll save Kenichi if you got some fucking gasoline, dude. I need to huff that shit right now. I'll put my hand on anything you want me to put my hand on, and it'll zap me. I don't care. As long as you hook me up with that gas.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about Tima letting go, or not ever grabbing on to Kenichi at the end? So she tries to kill him. And he's doing that thing where he's like, no, you're still my friend.
Yeah, boy, that fucking thing that pisses me off in every... Oh, God, it's so annoying. So Tima becomes evil, and she's literally trying to exterminate humanity. Something...
If I'm not a human, nobody can be.
Yeah, exactly. So she finds out that she's not human, because Duke Red's like, yeah, you're superhuman. And she's like, but I'm not human, because Rock shoots her, and then she realizes that she doesn't have blood coming out, and she sees her, I guess, metal heart. So she's like, oh, this is all fucked up. I thought I was human. Everybody's been lying to me. I'm going to kill everybody. She gets on the throne. She is about to kill all of humanity, and Kenichi's trying to save her because he loves her.
But we never set up why being human is important to her. I feel like she kind of woke up out of nowhere and has been walking the earth with only Kenichi to have understood any kind of humanity by.
Man,
and then
Kenichi
suddenly
sucks.
she's really upset about not being one?
Yeah, would you want to be like Kenichi? Kenichi stinks. Guy sucks. But anyway, Kenichi's trying to save her. He's ripping her out of the throne. And then they all go falling. And she's still kind of trying to murder him in her rampage. Like, they're dangling from these air bridges, which, where did those come from? Where did they land? It makes no sense.
Where did the danger Legos go that they were standing on in the throne room?
Yeah, and then so Kenichi's like hanging off of one of these bridges, and she comes up like Scar in The Lion King, and she's like, long live the king. She tries to kick him off, and he's like, no. And then she somehow falls off too. I don't remember how, but he's got her wires, and he's trying to save her.
They both fall off. He manages with some kind of superhuman strength to just catch himself on a metal rung ladder thing that's going across this area.
I mean, it's those incredibly steroid injected forearms of his. fucking Popeye's got nothing on Kenichi. Kenichi's been housing some spinach, dude.
And then he brings himself up, and then he looks over and he sees that she's hanging from one of the wires is connected to something kind of bulky, and they show it earlier because she's dragging it behind her.
Oh,
And that gets wedged in a corner, and so he tries to use this wire that has, I mean, one of those massive industrial wires where it's like many, many metal wires that are coiled together and then roped together, and then those are braided together, like really strong cable. And somehow this starts to fray as he's pulling her up. And yet his arms, his tendons, his tissue, fine.
Yeah.
Somehow.
He fell from a great height and did the classic movie thing of like, just no slowing down, just immediate stop because he grabbed onto that ladder thing. And as soon as it happened, I was like, yeah, his arm would be ripped off his body. But, suspension of disbelief, blah, blah, blah. Happens in movies all the time. But then when those wires started to fray, it's like, what?
You'd think he'd dislocate his shoulder or something before, like, those wires started to break.
Yeah. And then he starts pulling her up, like, no problem. Just pulling her up by the wire. The wire starts to fray. It eventually breaks, and he reaches down and he grabs her hand, and he's trying to be like, grab my hand. It's like, you already have her hand, idiot. And then she looks back up at him, and she kind of repeats the same thing that she said when they first kind of got introduced to each other with the who am I or who are you?
Her first sentence in the correct order, used correctly.
Yeah.
Which was, who am I?
Yeah. And then she slips out of his grasp and goes falling to her presumed death. But there is a post-credit scene where Kenichi has rebuilt Tima, and they have a robotics shop together. Because,
and they live happily ever after.
Yeah. Because all of the Alberts, I guess, and the other scrap picking up robots found some parts of Tima, and I guess they found her heart, which we do see.
Yeah, we do see the heart, and then we see the transition radio. And what did the transition radio say? It was the last... Kenichi, I actually left my notebook over there, so I have not been using it this whole time.
Wow, impressive.
Hey, thanks.
I think the radio says Kenichi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What did you hate most about Kenichi? Because the whole movie you were complaining about how much you didn't like Kenichi.
Well, I didn't like looking at him. And here's the thing. I didn't mind him as a character. He's kind of vanilla.
Yeah.
Seems like a sweet kid. Never really panics in situations where you might expect someone to panic.
Yeah, he's getting bullets shot at him. He's on the run from all kinds of different things. Like, there's gang violence. There's Rock trying to kill him. There's fucking him being separated from his uncle. He's in a foreign land. None of this seems to faze him. None of it.
He reminds me very much of kids in Disney movies when they, like, find an alien or find a whatever, and they immediately decide that they need to protect it. And have bonded with it. And that's all fine. Whatever. But did you see his eyes? And how his... I mean, everybody had this, and maybe it was more pronounced in him because he was wearing shorts. But his ankles were so much wider than his knees.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of looked like they had... Have you ever seen moon boots?
Yeah.
Everybody's feet looked like they were the shape of the bottom of a moon boot, but then it also had a shoe on it.
I think that Rock actually had moon boots, too.
I thought so, too. I mean, I think I said it at the time. I was like, are those moon boots?
Yeah, he had shoes on for sure. But, yeah, dude, Kenichi's calves being bigger than his upper leg, like quads and hamstrings, that's some kind of medical issue. And every man in this movie had that medical issue.
Yeah, cankles.
Yeah.
And also they had that situation like in their wrists compared to their elbows. But I guess you just see him more and more close up, and so it bothered me more. But he had this face that reminded me of these like 1950s cartoon branding that kind of freaked me out. Like his eyes take up so much of his face, and it's like so cutesy. It feels like 1950s baby doll. And I just kept looking at him and being like, I hate him.
Did you hate his look more than Duke Red, though, with his enormous schnoz?
Now, I didn't mind that, and I also thought he looked very much like Ganon from the Zelda series, except he had white hair or yellow hair. Depending on the scene, he seemed to change hair color and skin color. But
yeah, that's one of the sorry to interrupt you, but that's one thing that pissed me off about the animation was just people's skin tones. Like at certain points they'd be purple, certain points they'd be gray, certain points they'd be brown, certain points they'd be peach. Like it was all over the place. I guess different lighting.
Yeah, I think that's what it was supposed to be, but it was hard to see that. This movie played a lot with shadows, especially in the beginning. There were parts where the character that was talking was just all in shadow, which to me gave me that very noir feeling. But that entire city looks like an Art Deco birthday cake. There's like neon sprinkles in all kinds of places. And I had written in my notes like, oh, lots of play with light and shadow, which is very, very noir. And then I don't remember why, but Pero is taking the investigator into Zone 1, and he's just explained something. And this it seemed to be kind of a non sequitur, but the investigator just goes, light and shadow. I looked down at my notes and I was like, I just wrote that like 5 minutes ago for a different reason, but are they just trying to really get into your head? Yeah, light and shadow. We are trying to do this.
The investigator was peeping behind over your shoulder. He wanted to let you know he was there and checking up on you. Better not be up to any misdeeds.
Misdeeds? I'm a ne'er-do-well.
Yes. How often do well? Ne'er.
There were also a few characters who seemed to never stop smiling and were super creepy.
Yeah, that one guy that got killed by Rock, I forgot to include him on the kill list.
Yeah, and then later there's a guy who looks just like him, and I wondered if he somehow had survived being shot and then falling off the ledge of something that's 3 stories high.
Yeah, I mean, the investigator gets shot and he survives. Rock gets shot, he survives. And I mean,
where are they putting these bullets in the future?
The only thing that didn't survive getting shot was Albert, too.
Don't remind me, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, Tima gets shot. She survives, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she even survives that fall.
She survives the explosion.
Off of a skyscraper.
Dude, she's supposed to be the superhuman, but I feel like the rest of these people are pretty superhuman. They're getting shot left and right, and they're like, oh, I gotta go to work tomorrow. Like, can we wrap this up? It's not a big deal for me. I gotta find my goddamn nephew, but not after I get some ice cream. Fucking guy.
Oh,
what
man.
A negligent guardian.
I'm curious about how you felt the CGI blended in or didn't.
I thought it was a stylistic choice, and it didn't bother me because I know that this came out in 2001, so I give it a little bit of forgiveness with the CGI and the blending, but it didn't really bother me that much because I went into it being like, okay, this is a future sci-fi movie. There's going to be some elements of that where it's going to look weird, but yeah, I don't know. If it came out in 2020, I'd be like, this is bad. But because of the time, I give it a bit more of a pass. What about you?
I don't give it a pass. I mean, I think there were some parts where it was used well and other parts where it just looks so obviously CGI. And here's the thing, like, it's not like animators are watching that and think, oh, that looks better than if it was hand drawn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it looked just as out of place then, I'm sure, watching it, but people might have been more impressed by it. Like $15 million behind it.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think that must be about as impressive as CGI was getting at the time.
Yeah, I mean, you also, when we were watching it, you also said, like, is this a re-release where they remastered it or something to include CGI?
Yeah, and that's because I, for some reason, had thought it was like pre-Akira. I thought it was really old.
Me too.
And maybe it's because it looks like Astro Boy, and I think of Astro Boy being in the like 50s and 60s, like manga stuff. But and that's why because I was like, the CGI is like super obvious, and it kind of reminds me of that sort of time period where people were like, we just figured out CGI and
Let's
we think
throw
it's
it
the best
everywhere."
thing. Yeah, let's go back into old movies and replace stuff with CGI here. And then it looks terrible forever. And
Yeah, George Lucas is famous for basically ruining his own movies.
Yeah.
Star Wars with superfluous CGI.
but there were some parts where I was like, hey, that kind of blended in well. And there was other parts where I was like, why? Why are you using this right now? Because some of those backgrounds were so beautiful. And, you know, I think that the CGI was distracting for me in a lot of the points.
Well, would it surprise you to know that this movie was in production for 5 years?
No, not particularly. I think a lot of the stuff that looked hand drawn was incredibly detailed.
Yeah.
And I think animations do tend to take a long time.
Would it also surprise you to know that the director said that if the original artist of the manga were alive when he made this movie, he probably wouldn't have been able to make the movie because the manga artist wouldn't have allowed him to do it?
I also believe that. He did have some serious changes to the plot. And
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to discuss before we give our AMP rankings?
No, let's do our AMP rankings.
All right, Kat, I'm going to ask you first. For Metropolis, for 2001's Metropolis, what are you cranking your AMP to?
I'll give it a 6.
Oh, a 6. How very generous. It seems like you had a lot more problems with it.
Well, you know, I can think that a movie is impressive or has something to it that should give it a slightly higher rating. Like there's a lot of things that I thought were wrong with it, but there were also some very cool, very impressive things that I liked very much. I wish the rest of it was better to support how cool those things were. My problems were on a basic story level, so it would have taken a rewriting of this script in a big way. You know, I guess I did say I didn't have anything else to say, but it really bothered me, like the role of women in this film and the lack of them. If you're going to remake a film, or if you're going to make a film version of a comic book that was written in the late 1940s, put some women in it.
What if Albert II was a woman?
Is this your hot take, or are you saying would this change the movie? Like, I already loved him. Make somebody else a woman.
No, would you hate it more if Albert II was a woman?
No, what?
Would you hate it more? Because Albert II is like the only other woman, and then she gets killed.
I'm so glad you're taking my point seriously. All right, what's your amp?
I think that my amp goes to 7-Eleven, open 24/7. I really liked the soundtrack a lot. I think that's...
I thought you would have gone higher.
Yeah, I mean, basically from the end, a lot of times when we talk about them, I'll either go up or down. But basically from the end of the movie, I was like, all right, that's about a 7-Eleven. And then talking about it didn't really waver my decision this time, because I felt like the plot was, like, I could follow it. A lot of times the reason why I give movies a poor rating is because I feel like the plot is either unbelievable or it's hard to follow. This I could follow it and kind of get it. There were some unnecessary plot points, though, like the rival gang stuff, like the revolution and the assassination of the president didn't seem like it really added anything to the movie, in my opinion. But it didn't like horrendously take away from it. And I liked the animation, I think, a lot more than you did.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of unique, but it also didn't feel anime to me. I don't know why. It felt more like Popeye and Smurfs.
Well, I mean, it was based off of a lot of 1930s cartoons, and
Yeah.
there were some very specific references to some very old cartoons, and I felt like it moved more like watching really old Mickey Mouse
Yeah,
than it did watching anime, and that's what I mean by being less fluid. That the movement didn't remind me of the way movement in life moves, but the backgrounds moved very, very realistically. And then the characters were so cartoonish. And, even with the eyes, it's not like the eyes widen. The eyes would go from like small to big.
Mm-hmm,
There'd be like very jerky movements.
I don't know. And I agree with you that I feel like it did feel like very early Mickey Mouse cartoons and Steamboat Willie.
Like 20 frames per second instead of like 24.
Yeah, I don't know. This is more like cartoony for sure.
Mm-hmm. And more American cartoony.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's where I guess we can make the distinction. Yeah, I thought it was a unique choice, and it was very impressive, like some of the background scenery, and to me anyway, how the characters interacted with it. And yeah, all the scenes where Tima is in the sun or glowing, I thought were just beautiful and super cool looking. Yeah, so I give it a 7 out of 11.
All right. You've been listening to the Anime Movie Podcast.
Thanks for listening. This has been our episode on Metropolis.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.